Welcome to Defending Digital. I'm Chad Warner. Today, I'm pleased to have with me Luke Wilson, Vice President of Intelligence at 4IQ. He has over 15 years of experience working in U.S. federal law enforcement for the U.S. Department of Defense and the U.S. intelligence community. Luke, today I'd like to learn more about cybersecurity for average citizens as well as for the U.S. government. But first, let's go back in time. What piqued your interest in cybersecurity in the first place?
Well, thanks, Chad. Thanks for having me. I think something that piqued my interest in cybersecurity was while working for the government. I could see the crossover between just regular, I guess, criminal activity crossing across several different platforms in different areas such as financial crime and actually making it all the way through to cybercrime. So there's an individual behind the issue. There's someone putting fingers to a keyboard, and usually that keyboard, that act or something that they're doing that's suspicious, or the way that they are actually trying to poke and prod around different platforms, trying to find a weakness. To have either a financial gain or to commit a criminal act. So that's what piqued my interest a while ago. Previous when I was in the FBI, I was at the counterterrorism division, and everything there, although it was counterterrorism division, there at some point it turned into a cyber issue at some point, whether it's the individual traveling or a different platform that they may be using to recruit individuals.
Yeah. I mean, as more of our lives go online and become digital, all of the aspects of law enforcement and criminal investigations seem to touch on it at some point because of that intersection of where we're touching things digitally.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So you've had an interesting career path. You've mentioned a couple of items from your history, but would you mind briefly walking me through that kind of career path that's taken you to today and how you've gained that cybersecurity expertise along the way?
Yeah, I would say it initially started working for DOD as a special agent for the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, and working various criminal activities and threats to DOD, but then also working counterterrorism threats. And as I said before, you could see how this activity 10 to 15 years ago was starting to gather steam more online. And then I left there and went to work for the FBI in the counterterrorism division. And when you think of how people travel, how they communicate, everything is mainly done over the web. Even if you think you may, you go into a bank and you deposit some money, at some point that money gets transferred digitally.
Sure.
There's always a digital footprint there. And I was always fascinated about that and the financial aspect of terrorism, but then also left the counterterrorism division and went to work as the liaison for DOD and PACOM, and looking at that transnational organized crime threat as well. And that also had a very large digital footprint. After that, I came back to the FBI and worked nation state cyber actors. And, these are the various, I would say, groups that are very, they're very good at what they do and trying to hide who they are. And so, it's a very a tough nut to crack there, but very interesting way of how they would use different tools and different platforms to try to obfuscate who may be portraying these acts.
Yeah. So you've seen kind of from different levels and kind of behind the scenes in different places, what kind of your average person is dealing with in terms of threats related to their digital security, their digital privacy. In kind of seeing all of that, if you had to pick kind of the top few challenges or threats that the average individual is facing, what would you say those are?
Well, I would say the biggest one is that you have no idea who is holding your data or who's
Mm-hmm.
holding your information. You may think you're using Amazon, but Amazon may have a third party, service provider that holds
Mm-hmm.
that data, who verifies that data. You have so many things today where you use a log on and a password. You don't know where that information is stored. So when it comes to the average individual, I mean, and I consider myself that, you can't get around not logging on to things.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's imperative that you kind of try to have some kind of security on your end to protect yourself, because that data is out there and you won't know until it's too late, until someone's already using it, for some kind of criminal gain, or if they may just wait a long time and wait for the appropriate moment to strike, and either I would say transfer money out of your bank account, or just use your identity. So I think one of the biggest challenges is for normal consumer, how do I protect my own identity when everything that I want to access asks for username and a password, or your email address, and all these things that you have no idea where your data is actually going or being transmitted through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So wondering, who has the data, who has access to login credentials, identity details. Yeah, because like you said, there's this whole ecosystem of third parties that often have their hands involved at points that we can't see. So what kind of things do you recommend that people do about those? What kind of steps should the average person be taking in order to do what they can to protect themselves online?
I mean, one of the simple things I think you can do is, depending, you can sign up for one of these identity theft monitoring services, but then also, be very vigilant about, the passwords and that you're using for several different sites. We are our own worst enemy, so the human the human trait in the era is normally with us by trying to make things simplified by using the same password across many different platforms, and all it takes is for that to be used in one platform that has been breached, and now those cyber criminals have all that, have passwords to all of your login sites. Make them unique, make your passwords unique. I would say also, if there's a type of service where you can encrypt your passwords and different data, use that as well. You're just trying to make it as hard as possible for someone to attack you.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's for so kind of average adults and kind of things that they should be doing in terms of taking care of their passwords and protecting them, using them uniquely so that they're not subject to credential stuffing attacks where
Mhm.
hackers find out credentials and then just try them on a whole mass of websites and services. Um, how about kids? Are there particular challenges or threats that children face online related to their security or privacy that would be different than adults face?
I would say mainly the same. I would say that the thing about kids is, online. It's. I would say you want to be able to be able to monitor the things and the places that they're going to. There's still going to be some, the same use cases of using the same password
Hmm.
on various different sites. But I think a lot of it is, just that kind of cybersecurity hygiene for your entire family of you want to be able to understand, what sites people are going on, and if you can encrypt certain, your passwords and things of that nature, you still want to be able to do that with your kids, but it's going to be very hard. I would say the biggest thing with kids is understanding their digital footprint online and the sites that they're going to, because they're just going to see something and click it, and and it entices them to click it, and that's what they're going to do.
Hmm. Yeah, so helping them think through kind of the consequences and view things long term, and not just be looking for kind of that quick win of whatever they're looking to find or do, or
Yeah.
falling prey to clickbait.
Yeah, most definitely, and that's it's the same. Adults fall prey to it as well. So
Mm.
I imagine the kids will too. It's just one of the things that the earlier you can start educating them on this type of information, the better off they'll be.
Sure. Yeah. So you mentioned monitoring. Do you have any specifics that you recommend in terms of software or services, or is it kind of a general approach of just being aware of what your kids are doing online?
Yeah, just a general. I think they have a lot of different apps and things now that you can place on your kids' phones or their iPads and things of that nature. But I mean, even in your own home, your Wi-Fi, you can get certain products that allow you to understand where most of the usage is, what sites are being visited, and things of that nature. And you can block those sites, and that's just to protect yourself and your family.
Hmm. So you mentioned earlier identity theft as one of the main threats that people face. What would you say are the most effective ways that people can protect their identities?
Yeah, again, it would be I would sign up for one of these services, but also, you have to be very vigilant about where you are, who you're giving access to your information. Again, you have these certain scams that they'll call up older elderly people and start asking them information, getting their identity and being used in different places by criminals. Tax season's going to be coming around, so that's going to happen. They're going to do that type of uh, criminal scheme again and over. So it's being very vigilant on the information that you're sharing across the phone, across the computer. That something I never do is, again, I won't put my name and my social security and all these things together in an email or on a text message. It's just things like that if someone gets a piece of that puzzle, it's the last piece, and now your identity is out there. So have to be very vigilant in that manner.
Hmm. Yeah, and it seems like a big part of that the last several years has been people oversharing on social media,
Oh,
either sharing things that they shouldn't or setting their audience too broadly, and just kind of giving away information that could be useful to identity thieves. Are there
yes.
any particular mistakes that you've seen people making on social media?
Well, I think sometimes even pictures of places of where you're at, pictures of a simple family photo that has uh, your actual address in it can be
Mhm.
used in identity theft. Um, being you don't understand when people may or may not want to attack you, and they may already have all this information, but saying, oh yeah, I'm out of the country on travel and this is lovely and these types of things. Well, it's a perfect time to start attacking your bank account.
Mhm.
So things of that nature where that these cyber criminals are just sitting there and waiting for the right opportune time. And then also it kind of some of that stuff also leads to physical protection too, because if you're a high net worth individual and you say I'm traveling here or I'm going there, um, that could relate to some physical harm to you
Mhm.
or someone that you love as well. So just being very vigilant on the type of information you put out there on the open web.
Right, right. Yeah, one of my most popular blog posts is about not posting about travel before or during the trip, and because I still see that. I mean, I've seen it again just now during the holidays, and people traveling for Thanksgiving and announcing well in advance. I'm not going to be home. I'm going to be at this place, and then you're endangering your property. You're saying you're not going to be watching your accounts very closely. So yeah, just all kinds of dangers with that kind of oversharing.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I tell people that whatever physical harm someone could do you if you post that type of information, just imagine what they could do, over the internet and cybercrime ways of actually attacking you. So you probably have a larger chance of that happening than someone physically attacking you for posting
Hmm.
that information.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier, kind of the different steps for identity theft, and we were kind of going in that. And since the Equifax breach, there have been a lot of mentions of credit freezes and locking down your own credit and your kids' credit and things like that. What do you think about that? How effective is a credit freeze in terms of reducing the risk of identity theft?
Um, I guess from my perspective, I guess it's a reactive, it's just a reactive measure. Um, I I don't know how effective it is, because at that point that you're locking down your credit, you're gonna have to go through so many steps to actually, get credit first of all afterwards.
Mhm.
And it's more of a pain for you than it is the cyber criminals because they'll
Mhm.
find ways around it. They're not necessarily going to apply for credit in your name. They're just
Sure.
gonna wipe out your bank account, or they're gonna, try some other things to get at you. But um, I don't think many cyber criminals are going out there and applying for a home mortgage loan.
Mhm.
It just depends on the specific actors.
Sure. Sure. Okay. So, how about moving kind of into the physical world? Postal mail. You hear people giving advice about, being careful what you leave in your mailbox and for how long and things like that. Um, what advice do you have about what people should do with postal mail related to preventing identity theft?
Well, surely you should, if you're not going to be there or whatever, stop your mail.
Mhm.
You don't know what people are up to, but as it stands for that, I don't think there's a very large threat that way for identity theft. Of course, they're going to see your address, but there's several different just open source places you can go to get someone's address and understand if they live there or not.
Mhm.
Um, there's there's websites out there that tell you, hey, this individual just bought a home here or there. That's out there. That's free information.
Right.
So many different things that they can do instead of actually coming to your house or your mailbox and looking at your mail.
Mhm. How about for kids? Are there particular steps that parents should be doing to protect their kids' identities?
I guess also for the kids, I would sign up for one of those identity theft monitoring services. And yeah, again, you have to be vigilant in knowing what sites your kids are going to, and try to block those as much as you can, and educate them on that. You know, in our line of work, we've seen where you know there's identity theft identities out there for people that are 13, 14 years old for sale, right? So
Mhm.
um, that data was breached or inhabited some way or another. And so you can imagine some of these may be from, they combine the different data from, let's say, maybe a video gaming site and Equifax, right?
Sure.
So now I have a full identity here that I can sell, um,
Mhm.
for a 10-year-old, 12-year-old. So those are things that people these I won't say they're all very smart, but they're very creative of how to monetize the data.
Mhm. So let's say that a person starts to see warning signs that their own identity or maybe their child's identity has been stolen. They see suspicious activity. Um, what steps should a person take if they have that suspicion or they outright know for sure their identity has been stolen? What do you recommend that they do?
So I would first off, I think there's like some Fair Credit Bureau or something like that that you can reach out to discuss, like, okay, this is what has happened to me. So there's I don't have it right in front of me, but there's certain steps that you can take to reach out to different organizations so they can understand that, all right, this information is out there and breached about myself or my child, and how to remediate that. um, I think it's probably fairly easier for your child than it will be for you, because you have so much of a credit history, and you have your identity for what, 40, 35, 40 plus years.
Mhm.
that now is being obtained and used by cyber criminals. So there's a lot of things that you, as an adult, you would have to do and prove that you did not make these purchases, or you did not apply for this credit card, or you didn't, ask for certain things to be changed as your bank account and other things of that nature. So um, I think it's understanding just the differences and the nuances and the different agencies that can help you out with that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So taking the right steps so that the information gets corrected. People who need to be made aware of the errors are, and as quickly as possible, basically.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yes.
Yeah. So I know a lot of times when the topics of identity theft and kind of stolen data comes up, the media likes to talk about the deep web and the dark web. And when I talk to people about that, they're often very confused about, what is this deep web? What is this dark web? So how would you explain those terms to the average kind of non-technical person?
Right. So I would explain the dark web as a marketplace. That's like, you need to be vetted to be on this marketplace. It's several different marketplaces actually, and they specify in certain goods. So, or you may have one that specifies in a variety of goods. So whether that is, narcotics, stolen identities, guns, how-to books, all these type of things are in these dark web, we'll call them like vendor places. So think of it like an Amazon of just bad things.
Sure.
All of those sit in the deep web. is what you need. A specific, you need to know exactly where you're going to. So like Google indexes the entire web. There's certain, .onion sites that you need to know exactly how to get to those specific dark web vendors.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's an address to that, and you have to get on it using the deep web. So that would be my explanation for it. I'm sure there's a lot of people that can explain it better, and we'll probably go into technical details about that, but that's how I would explain it.
Sure. Okay. So let's shift from kind of the individual level over to the governmental level. So kind of given your experience working in the government as well as the private sector, how would you say the U.S. government is doing in terms of handling current cyber threats? And then how do you think they're positioned for future cyber threats?
I think they're handling the cyber issues very well. And it's always a game of cat and mouse.
Mm-hmm.
You catch up to one issue, one problem, and then another one happens, and the criminals always have a leg up because they'll go where we won't, and then we have laws and rules, or where I would say we, the government, I used to be. It's laws, rules, and regulations that we have to abide by in order to catch these guys, and so. We have to, takes us a little while to get through those, but then we eventually get through them, and we start catching the guys, and then they change their MO again, and we have to go through that whole cycle again, and then we catch them again. Mm-hmm. As it pertains to future cyber threats, there's think tanks and groups out there that's all they do is look at what they think is coming down the line. So, I don't know how great we will do with that, but I'm pretty sure I have faith in them that this is, something they're looking at and how to change it. I would think the bigger issue now is that since, these cyber threats go across government agencies, but also to commercial agencies and commercial groups. So, it's trying to figure out how the federal government will be able to help a large financial institution defend itself from a nation state hack, or will they do that? Or, how the federal government will respond to something like that. So those are some of those larger issues at hand where it's going to be not only, the powers that be and the individuals that work these types of cases and those commercial institutions trying to work together, but, the government as a whole trying to direct some kind of policy towards these new wave of attacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One kind of debate that's been raging for a while now between several national governments and tech companies has been about encryption and end-to-end encryption in messaging platforms as well as other software, where governments say, well, in order to properly monitor and enforce laws, we need to be able to see conversations. And tech companies saying, well, no, to protect privacy, we're going to have it end-to-end encrypted so that no one, including us or governments, can see these conversations. And the governments have been asking for backdoor access so that they can monitor the communication. Do you have an opinion on that debate?
My personal opinion would be, I think with everything, we're always battling privacy and security, and that's the main debate here. And I always think on the side of caution here, where would I want, anyone to have full access to all my data and everything? No, I wouldn't. But would I want someone to be able to if something very bad was, to say, another 9/11 or something like that were to go on, and someone would be able to have a backdoor into one of the main subjects' phones or something like that that was communicating with people around the world, would I want that as well? Yes, I would. So there's a fine balance there, and I can see both sides of, hey, we need access to this, as the government, but then also as a citizen, my information is private. And I've always said this, that I guess if I'm not doing nothing wrong, I have nothing to worry about. I lean on that side, but there are governments around the world that don't have the same, theory as we have, and they can intrude on private citizens' messages and phone conversations and things of that nature. So I can understand the fight between the two. I'm just more of if something very bad was going to happen, would I want someone to have access to that? And yes, I would. So I guess my position is, I think there should be some way that the government should be able to access that, whether it's some legal way or something like that could happen. Yes. But I don't think total anonymity is the key for everyone. That's just the best thing for everyone in life. I don't believe in that.
So you've kind of witnessed digital security and privacy trends over the last couple of decades. Does that make you optimistic or pessimistic about the future?
I think I'm pretty optimistic. I think there's new technology popping up all the time, and we have to figure out what privacy concerns we may have with that. It's I guess years ago, the internet alone was considered a very bad place to be on. It's nothing, only used for porn and things of that nature. And look how this has evolved, right? Everything's on the internet. So we definitely need to figure out a way of the future of what are some of these security and privacy concerns with the new technology.
Mm-hmm. On the 4IQ website, you share news and advice about data breaches, identity theft, a lot of the topics that we've been discussing. Other than your own website, what other ways do you recommend that people stay informed about cybersecurity and privacy issues? Are there any particular sources that you recommend?
I would say there's a a lot of reading that I do from different websites that provide us information on some of these data breaches. So I think one of them is, I think it's called Data Breach Today or something like that, databreach.com. Um, it's a really good collection of data breaches, and basically, they have articles about breaches that have happened during the week, the month, and things of that nature, and you get some really good insight on those. So I look at those, but I would also say again, if just for the regular consumer, you sign up for one of these monitoring services, so you know that your specific data is out there and what you should do to remediate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have any other warnings or advice or encouragement that you'd like to share before we conclude?
Well, I'll be remorse to say, it's the holidays, so this is where things gear up, and you don't want to have a bad holiday. So just be very careful about where you spend your money. Also, as well, of giving that information out. If it doesn't seem right, then don't do it. Just by going to the gas station and buying buying gas with your credit card, the next thing you know, you're exposed. So, just be very vigilant and during the holidays of what kind of information and that digital footprint that you're leaving out there.
Right. Yeah. So for people who want to learn more about you or about 4IQ, where can they find you online?
Mainly on LinkedIn. Yeah,
Okay.
not on any other sources, but LinkedIn, and you can always reach me at on luke.wilson@4iq.com.
All right. Well, today I've been joined by Luke Wilson, Vice President of Intelligence at 4IQ. Luke, thank you for sharing your knowledge with us today. And I'm Chad Warner of Defending Digital, teaching you to defend your digital life. I hope you found the interview insightful and helpful. You can find a text summary of the interview at defendingdigital.com, and also links to 4IQ, as well as finding Luke Wilson on LinkedIn. So what should you do? Step 1, consider signing up for an identity theft monitoring service for yourself and other members of your family, including your children. 2, don't use the same password for multiple accounts. Make each password unique. 3, use a password manager to securely store your passwords. 4, monitor your kids to know what they're doing online. You can use apps for monitoring, or look at your router logs, or configure your router to block sites. 5, educate your kids about online safety. The earlier, the better. 6, be careful about who you grant access to your info, especially during high-risk times such as holidays and tax season. 7, be aware of scams that request personal info. 8, don't send sensitive info by email or text. 9, don't post photos that reveal your location. 10, don't reveal that you're traveling by posting about it. And 11, if you suspect or know that your identity has been stolen, follow the steps outlined by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, including filing an identity theft report with identitytheft.gov. You can learn more about protecting yourself and your kids online at defendingdigital.com. If you found this episode helpful and you're liking the podcast, I'd love it if you would open the app or site they're using to listen to this podcast and leave a star rating, leave a review if you're so inclined to write one, and also tell others about the podcast and tell others about the website, defendingdigital.com. Thanks.